on the waterfront, people are calling me the Oyster Lady. But I've always thought of myself more as an accidental oyster farmer. Because the truth is, I never wanted to be an oyster farmer. I never even liked oysters. So if you had told me 5 years ago that I was going to be back home in Maine with an oyster farm, I would have thought you were joking. 5 years ago, I had a completely different life. I was living in Paris, France. I was trading stocks and consulting on business plans, things I could do from home, in my pajamas if I wanted to, and I was dating a French count. I had like the clean and easy life in Paris. But on the inside, something was missing. I didn't feel like I had a purpose. The truth is, I was in Paris, living the most French experience of all, the existential crisis. Some of you may know something about that. And then my crisis got the best of me. The count wanted to marry, and I wasn't happy. I couldn't commit, so I got dumped. I put all my stuff in storage, and I came home to Maine for the summer. And it was back here in Biddeford, asking new, deep questions about what now was I going to do for the rest of my life, that I wound up writing a business plan for a new friend from out of town. I'll write the business plan, I told him, but I'm not getting my hands dirty. Famous last words. As it turned out, the aspiring oyster farmer turned out to be more of a fraud than a friend. And as I had advanced my own money for the project, I wound up owning the farm. And I promise you that was not the plan. In college, I studied French literature, and that does not help me at all on the oyster farm. But it did give me some insights into French existential theory, and that can give you some insights into life. Well, the existential crisis is all about big questions and doubt and paralysis. At its core, existential theory is really about taking action. In one of his famous plays, the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre wrote, and I'm going to speak some French for you, Parfois, il faut savoir se salir les mains. Sometimes in life, you have to know how to get your hands dirty. Because life is tough. It's hard, it's messy, and sometimes it's even ugly. But you got to know how to dig in and just get your hands dirty, take action. Because the actions you're going to take in life are what's going to define you as a human being. Well, as you might have guessed, I was not feeling too hot about life right now. I'd lost the count, I'd lost Paris, and now it looked like I had lost a lot of money. But you know what? I did have an oyster farm. So, much to my own surprise, and that of everybody who's ever met me, I'd followed my father's advice, and I cowboyed up. I dried my tears, and there were many. I bought a pair of waders, and I went out and I started farming oysters. And boy, do I ever get my hands dirty. At the height of the season, my day goes something like this. I wake up at the crack of dawn, I put on some dirty old clothes and some very fashionable Crocs. And I go out to my farm and I haul bags, I sift through oysters, I clean ropes, I clean boats, I do all of this manual labor that I thought my college education was going to spare me. By the end of the day, I am covered head to toe in mud. I am starving and I am exhausted. But you know, at the end of the day, I can see what I've done. I have measurable results. And handing over a bag of oysters to my wholesaler George when he needs them is unbelievably satisfying. Now, part of the reason this is so satisfying is because by handing over a bag of oysters, it means that I've actually done something right. Because, frankly, the manual labor is really the least of my problems. Actually, farming oysters is way above my pay grade. Let me put this into perspective for you. 4 years ago, I didn't know what the term bivalve meant. Everybody in my farm was about bivalve this, bivalve that. I had to look it up on Wikipedia. If you don't know, but you probably do because you're probably smarter than I was, it means an organism with 2 shells, kind of like all the oysters growing on my farm. The deeper I get into this, the crazier I realize it all was, because it's really, really hard. Every day, my little oyster farm grapples with all the big issues that we read about climate change in the news. These big storms we're having rip up my gear. The rising sea levels are bringing man-made pollutants and toxins down from the land and onto the river and into my site. These the warming waters are bringing new viruses and predators onto my site that threaten my stock. And sometimes my oysters die, and I just have no idea why. I have a young team of employees and interns that look to me for direction. And sometimes I'm the first to admit I just look right back at them. But it's my farm, and I have to run it. So I gather information. I read, and then I talk to people who know better than I do. I talk to the clammers, I talk to the fishermen, I talk to the harbor masters, professors, and scientists. And then I process all that information, and I go out to my farm, I suspend my own sense of disbelief, and I wing it. I just take action. Sometimes it works, often it doesn't. But through time, my actions get better and better informed, and they work better and better. The only thing that has come close to preparing me for this kind of thing was actually learning French by immersion. At 15, I spent a year at a French high school, and I had to learn French to pass my classes. So I started observing, and then I started imitating. First, I took the easy steps. Bought a pair of skinny jeans and some big scarves and tried to look French. And then I learned that if you hold your mouth like this, you can sound French, and you don't even have to speak French. That worked for a while. And then, just like on the oyster farm, I subjected myself to humiliation day after day with my terrible, horrible 4-year-old French until I finally got it right. But you know what? It happened. The people on the waterfront, I've learned, don't call me the Oyster Lady because they like my oysters. I don't think anybody's had my oysters. And you know what? They don't call me the Oyster Lady because they think I'm really good at it, because I'm not out of the water. And that's no secret. They call me Oyster Lady because I'm out there acting like the Oyster Lady. As they say, fake it until you make it. So I guess I've faked it pretty well. Because you know what? I think I've actually become the Oyster Lady. People call me up and they want my oysters. They want to visit the farm. Me, I am being invited to go around Maine talking about aquaculture. Me! And you know what? I'm starting to have something to say about the issue. As an Oyster Lady, I have a little role to play in a larger community. And I promise you, it is so much more fun being of service to a larger community than it ever was to be in Paris being of service basically only to myself. On the water, I've learned about the incredible interconnectedness of all marine life. Each organism has a role to play for the whole thing to work. And when one organism is compromised or missing, the balance of nature shifts, and generally for the worse. I've learned that on land, it's really no different. All of us, you and me, have a role to play in our communities. And if we're not there to play a role, to be of service, then neither the individual nor the community can thrive and meet its potential. I made a lot more money in Paris trading stocks with a lot less effort. But I wasn't leading a meaningful life, and I wasn't meeting my potential. As an oyster lady, this virtuous cycle has happened. By going out and just taking action, I've been invited by other people to help them on their projects. I've been able to help the clammers in Scarborough reseed the clam flats, to even help our mayor in the city of Biddeford try to figure out what to do with this green algae slime that's taking over our inner harbor. I've even been able to chime in a little bit on the downtown revival project. These things matter. You know, it matters that we have a sustainable working front and a pollution-free harbor and a vibrant downtown community. Turning a quick profit on a Russian sell stock? I don't know. You tell me. Does that matter? I never want to be an oyster lady, and I never thought I'd come back to Maine. But it is ironically by becoming an oyster lady that I have found a renewed sense of purpose back here in my home turf, where people like you and me, you too, can make a difference. So, if you today are looking at life's big questions straight on, college, work, what to do with the rest of my life, my suggestion would be to not sit around waiting for the perfect solutions. Don't wait for the perfect opportunities. But it would be to get out of your house, put down your laptops, step outside into your community, and get your hands dirty. Because by taking action, just any action, you can solve a lot of problems, yours and the world's.